Okay, I think it's nice and dry. Yes, it's nice and dry. All right, working with my round brush again, and then I'm working with an old scruffy brush. It's probably, I want to say, well, they're excellent brushes. It's Royal Clear Choice 5250. This is, it's worn off here, it's so old. It's probably a 3 or 4 round, probably a 4 round. But it's just an old scruffy brush, and it's damp, and this is what I use to blend with. Okay, so going into just the red. Remember, we've got red, we've got a maroon color, and we got a lighter red or pink. Going in just the red, I'm gonna start painting up here at the top. And again, it's fairly quickly if we're going to blend. If you have a fan blowing in your area, you might want to turn that off because this paint dries so quick and you won't be able to do some blending. Now I'm going to come in with a little bit of the pink over to the side. Taking my scruffy brush, I'm going from the lighter color to the darker color. So I pounce onto that pink, and it's probably hard for you to see on the camera, but you'll see the difference here shortly. A little bit more of the regular red. Now, I'm thinking the sunlight is coming in from this direction. So this is going to be my lighter part of the ornament. My medium color of the ornament, which is just red. And then down through here is going to be the darker red, kind of the shadow area. So a little bit of red. Let's do the pink a little bit more. Just dab it on there, and going from the light to the dark, grab up some of that pink and dance it into the medium red color, or just regular red. Now this red is still wet right here. I'm going to grab a little bit of the darker maroon color, paint the bottom of that ornament. And another practice is how much paint do you put on your brush before you get to working it. That is just, you've got to learn how much more paint to put on your brush, or what little bit of paint to put on your brush. So I'm grabbing some of that red up here that's on here, going down into the dark. My rule of thumb is always take the light to the dark. A little bit more of the maroon down here at the base. Rinsing my brush off, drying it, grabbing a little bit of the red. And I'm going to dance the lighter red into the darker red. So getting my brush with paint, the pouncy brush, the dancing brush, going down into the dark. That way you have a little bit of a contrast there. I'm going to turn my board and get a little bit more of the pink over here on this side. Rinse my brush off, grab a little bit of the pink, finish off this spot right here. And you gotta have enough paint on there to blend with. So taking the pink, the light to the dark, I'm gonna go into this red part right here and down to the maroon part. Let me see if you can see that. We got dark down here, we got medium red here, and we got a lighter red or pink up here. Still looks like a red ornament. Looks like I missed a spot right there with the dark. So, grab a little bit of dark and just cover that little smidge up. There we go. Now, I really want this side over here to pop. This is where the sun, let me turn this way, where the sun is coming in at, so, or the light. So we're going to put a little bit more pink right there. What you're doing is now you're building up where your highlight's gonna go. I'm gonna grab a little bit of that white. So it's mixing now with that pink. With my scruffy brush, dancing brush, damp, not wet, just damp, I'm going to blend that out. Just a little tapping, that's all it is, guys, just tapping. With a clean brush, I want to get rid of a little bit of this, if you can see it. Where the red is here, the highlight's there. We're going to just break that up a little bit. You kind of use your imagination like clouds. That way you don't have a brush stroke, it's more of a splotchy look, okay? Or a cloud look. All right, we're gonna let that dry. We're gonna start on the green. One of the things that I also do, another little tip is when I use styrofoam plates. I used to buy those fancy palettes years ago, and a lot of people still use them. They have nice covers and places for your paint and all that. Over the years, well, I did use a palette for quite a few years that had a sponge that was underneath the palette paper. That sponge would keep that palette paper damp, so it would keep your paints damp, which was great. But I got out of the habit of using it. Now I just use styrofoam plates. I don't use paper plates because paper plate will absorb your water that's in your paint, but styrofoam doesn't absorb very well. And when I walk away, let's say I've got to let the dog out or got to go water the garden, I will take another plate, put it right on top, and then put a paint bottle on top of that to keep it nice and firm. If I am working on a project and it's taking days, then I use Ziploc bags. And I will put my palette with the lid on it in the Ziploc bag and still put a heavy bottle on top, and that keeps a good seal. And that paint is pretty good for at least a couple days. It will stay moist. You might have to add a little bit of water to it when you go to work with it, but the Ziploc bag method works. What works even better is to take the Ziploc bag with your palette in it and put it in the refrigerator. And so let's say you're going on vacation and you don't want to lose those paint colors. You could seriously put it in the refrigerator and it will stay at least 4 or 5 days. Okay, there's another tip. Now, working with the green. Again, my sunlight is coming in this direction, same as here. So I'm going to go light here, medium green here, dark green underneath because that's a shadowed area, and then a darker green on this side as well because this is away from the sunlight or away from the light. So I'm going to go with my green, dark green first, get some paint on my brush, go right underneath that ornament. Spread it out just a little bit. Now before it dries, I rinse my brush. And I'm going to grab the regular green. That's all. It wasn't anything done to the regular green except we added water. I'm putting my regular green on there. And I am going to blend it. If I can find my blender brush, there it is. I'm going to blend it into the dark. Again, you're taking the light to the dark. So get your brush filled with that regular green paint and start dancing it or pouncing lightly over into the dark. And what it's doing, it's blending. You don't lose the dark, but then you don't see a crisp line where the dark and the medium green meet together. Let's add a little bit more dark there. All right, I'm gonna take that dark all the way down here to the edge. Fill it in. My regular green, we're gonna put about in that area. Then we're gonna dance that regular green into that dark, which blends. I know on the camera you're probably not picking up on this, but you'll see the difference, especially when I add the light. Again, you have to work kind of quick, which is frustrating at times until you get a handle on it and learn how to do it. You got to work on it pretty quick because that acrylic paint will dry fast. This is a good time that you could use that paint retarder and put it in each one of your paint colors. Okay, the dark is still wet. The medium green is still wet. Now I added the light green. Again, fill up your brush from the light area and then start working your way into the dark. Medium, excuse me. What this is doing is it's blending the colors together. You will see the difference between the light and the dark, but it doesn't look so drastic. In other words, you don't see the line between the dark and the light. I'm going to add a little bit more dark down here at the bottom. Then the light is still wet. My dancing brush or my pouncing brush is damp. I'm going to grab a little bit of that light and go right down there into the dark area. Now something that is, like right there, there is an extra amount of dark paint. And if I try to use my scruffy brush to grab it and blend it out, it's going to go outside the line. So I'm taking my round brush again, and all I'm going to do is just stroke that gently and kind of pat it, because you don't want to use your nice brushes to blend the colors, but you can just gently pat and it won't mess them up. They're pretty sturdy brushes, they really are. It's just you can get in a bad habit when you've got such a nice brush. And if you start blending with it all the time, it will mess up the bristles eventually with the little hairs. Okay, can you see the difference? You've got your dark, your medium, and then you've got your light. I want to get rid of, now you could leave it and it'd be okay, but I want to get rid of that. So I dampen my brush, and because it's still wet, I'm just going to touch that right there. Again, you're trying to make it look, when you're blending, kind of like clouds, when you're looking close enough. Okay, I think that's going to work on that one. Now, that's a simple way of doing ornaments, but we're not done yet, of course. We've got to enhance just a little bit more. Now, using my real thin brush, this is, you can use most thin brushes, what they call script brushes, but this is like a script brush, but a script brush is even longer. And years ago, they used to intimidate me like crazy, but I learned how to use them, and oh my goodness, love them dearly. But this one is a little bit shorter bristle. It's called a midliner. So both paint brushes are damp. And where's my white? I'm gonna grab a little bit of white because I need a reflection on this ornament. You let the bristle, by pressing gently, do the work for you. Now, once you've done a reflection and you didn't like it, then just paint over it again. If I didn't care for that, I would just take the pink paint, the red and white mix, go over it, add a little bit of red here, blend the two together, and you'd never know the mistake was made. One of the things that they do is they square off that bottom. I've seen that happen so many times. So all I'm doing is just playing with the reflection a little bit. That's why these little brushes come in handy, is you can just barely touch and make a difference. All right, cleaning it off, we're gonna do the same thing with the green. It needs a little reflection. Grabbing a little bit of white paint, and I showed you in a previous video, but when you're using a script brush, grab your paint, twirl it off. That way you don't have a big old clump of paint on there. And we're gonna do highlight there. Okay, let's see if I can fix that a little bit. This rough board leaves a lot to be desired, but that's all right. We'll work with it. Okay. Now you can keep on enhancing this over and over. You can, like at this point, oh, matter of fact, I can show you when using a glaze. Let's see if you get a good look at this, because I want you to see the difference of what a glaze will do to it. So at this point, it's done. You can add the little silver thing at the top if you want, and one down here. And what my plan was, I had made myself a little pattern with the word joy. And so instead of letting this scrap piece go to waste, I was going to put that joy right there. And I will show y'all how to do that. Okay, but for the glaze, so you can see how cool it looks. Hopefully you can see it on this camera. I'm going to take a little bit of yellow, because yellow and red and yellow and green look so good together. Now, That's a small of amount that you need. You don't need much. And this is that glaze. We're gonna do the same amount. I always put it on the side so I can tell that I've got equal amount. Now we're gonna need a whole lot of water. Yes, that water's dirty, but it's once you stir it all up, it won't matter. So we need it fairly wet. Let's see if you can see that. It's pretty wet. Matter of fact, a little bit more won't hurt. Because what you're doing is you're turning, even though yellow is a translucent color, you're turning it even more translucent. But when you add the glaze to it, you don't lose the depth of the color. All right, using my round brush, a little scruffy brush, I'm gonna grab a little bit of that yellow glaze, and let's say I put it right about here. And then just blend it out. You're not blending it into another paint color because these colors have already dried. But all I'm doing is just gonna dance that out. And by doing this, I won't lose my red color, but it will cause it to look even more rich looking. Let's see if I can get a little bit closer there, right to the edge. I'm afraid the rough part of the wood is probably getting in the way of you seeing this very well. All right, we're gonna add a little bit of that yellow glaze to the green, kind of the light area of the green and the medium green color area. Even though the paint is dry, you're gonna blend this out with a damp brush. Using more water on my paintbrush to get the paint or the glaze to move. Now I'm not going to go all the way over into the dark area because you want to see the contrast. You want to see the difference. Oh, I hope y'all can see that. That's very pretty. I like it. Just kind of gives it a little something. Okay, let's see if I can quickly run through. Well, again, the board is rough, so I'm not too sure how that pattern of joy is going to show up on that rough board. But what I do is, now this is what is called trace paper. It does exactly it. You can trace it. I made the pattern I have a program called, it's an old program called Microsoft Publisher. And you can still use graphite paper underneath here, but I like using the more flimsy paper to be a pattern. So your graphite paper, what is graphite paper? Well, it's graphite. It comes in several different shades, but I suggest you don't waste your money on all those other shades. If you can get what is called they call it white, they call it beige, off-white graphite paper, this is what it looks like. And if you can get it also in a dark gray or black, Those two colors is what you're going to use probably the very most if you're transferring words, font over onto your pattern, or if you're transferring a pattern in itself. Let's say you needed to put a carrot on a board and you don't want to draw the carrot out. Well, then you make a pattern and you use your graphite paper to get it on your board, because this side is dull, this side is where it's a chalk, and it works beautifully. So then you use what's called a stylus, or you can use a pencil or a pen, it's fine. But a stylus comes in handy to transfer your pattern over. And again, let's see how this is going to work on this rough board. I'm going to have the joy coming down a little bit. I want it about right there. So holding it with my finger, and the powdery side down, has to be down on your surface. I will slide this. Oh, thanks for the AC. And again, this is a fun little project, so I will slide that underneath. Again, the chalky side down, facing your project. Holding it with your left hand if you're right-handed. Using the stylus or a pencil, it's up to you. The stylus has a little round ball at the end, so it kind of goes nicely on when you're transferring patterns. We'll see how this works. So you just go over your pencil area, always holding that pattern down, because if it moves, it's a little too difficult to get it back in its right spot for everything to line up. I'm gonna hold it with this hand and see if it's transferring on this rough. It might not be. Yeah, it is a little bit. I wonder if you can see that. All right, so holding it down. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because you can fix most flaws of your font with your script brush or that skinny bristle brush. I've had people ask me, oh my gosh, how do you do such perfect letters? I'm like, well, I just do a pattern. And now there are folks out there, I've seen them, I've followed them many times and watched them on YouTube, where they know how to do beautiful, beautiful lettering, freehand. You have to apply a little bit of pressure, but it does come off well. Obviously, I'm using a beige color graphite paper, so it shows up on the black. Let's see, before you let it go, hold it tight with your left hand. Look and see if you've got pretty much all of it on there, and I do. I know down here the graphite paper didn't, because of the angle of the pattern. I'll just fill that in with my paintbrush. But yeah, that's it. Now y'all know the secret, how to get lettering on your project. Hopefully you can see that well. Now what I will do is probably deciding what color I'm going to do the joy. I will use a watered down paint of, let's go with white. Got a little bit of white on there. I've got some water in my brush. Yes, I know my water is dirty. It's okay. See, it just disappears. But it's a consistent consistency, excuse me, of thin gravy. Using the skinny little brush. Now this is where obviously it takes a lot of patience to do a font, but it's so worth it. But using a lot of paint on your brush, well, I have to because the board is so rigid. Is that such a word? I'm just going to show you this one part and finish this off camera. But again, using this script brush or liner brush really comes in handy. And see, I'm using, when I'm coming around the corner, I'm using more the tip of the brush than I am the middle part of the brush. But you can use it just like a pen, basically. And fill it in. All right. Now that my edge is going to be a little rough. And that fixes it a little bit. It's just slow and easy. It takes a little time to learn how to work with these small liner brushes. Just a little bit of practice and you'll have it down. All right. Now, once I do that in all white, I will probably at this point splatter the whole thing in white and then splatter it in black. Splattering, you don't have to do this. This is just for the fun of the project. And what I'm hoping to do is just put 2 holes at the top, run a twine on it, and I might add a little something down here, and it'll be a great sign for Christmas. It'd be a nice little gift to give to somebody. But how to splatter? Old toothbrush. These work out really well. They need to be damp. But make sure you have most of the water off. Now I use, of course, my nails, they get shot because of the garden a lot and because of paint. But I will put tape on this thumbnail because I don't want to dig all the paint out of my nail when I go to splatter. Okay, the toothbrush is damp, got barely any water in it. I'm going to touch it on the white. And again, you don't have to do this to your project, but it just gives a little something. And then I will take the brush, run my thumbnail over it, and then it just breaks up all that black. It just kind of gives it something. I like it like that. Kind of reminds me of stars or snow. Now when I finish this font in white, I'll go back with a little bit of black splatter because then it'll break up all that white and it'll look pretty cool. All right, guys, thanks for joining me. I hope you learned something. I hope it went well for you. I will get better at this as far as the editing and all that good stuff. And the long, drawn-out stories, I will try to keep them at a minimum. Have a great day.